Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood Was Armageddon. The Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. Always, that means no fisticuffs. RJ recommended a possible marathon, so I got me some lemon water infused with some colloidal silver. Of course, it's distilled. I care about my temple. I'm not dressed up. I was at a football game today at the high altitude where I live in Alamosa, 7,500 feet. The sun gets pretty bright. Before I did that, I provoked a storm, I think. I told the people that it's so silly to listen to anybody that tells you the North Pole is where the camp of the saints goes. I called it childish, immature. Oh my goodness. Even in the description, I kind of went off, but I don't care. This is the truth. We're going to sneak up on it tonight. So much stuff. I am so glad that you're here. And I just can't wait to see what's the Lord provides. What is this Halloween quiz? Whoever sent that? That's from my other college and the university I belong to. I was cheering for my home team. The offensive line coach lives in the faculty housing next door to me. Good man. Hey, Zach Macanudo and Sergio are in the house. These guys have no chance, and I think none of them will show up. They all shot their mouth off like I did. A lot to prove here. Let's go. I searched for the Texas School Book Depository just to jumpstart one of the. Don't you even know about Admiral Byrd? And there's a vast wasteland up there, bigger than North America. On top of the globe is what they teach. Whether it's, come on, man. The Texas School Book Depository. Of course, I clicked on it. Did you know under Byrd's ownership, Paco, way to be a buzz killer. Yeah, that's a descendant of Admiral Byrd. They're all a part of the Rosicrucian, Freemason, Roman Catholic, diddling loving. Anyway, the Texas School Book Depository isn't this mud flood building. That's the building. The Texas School Book Depository is a corporation that was in charge of hoarding books. John Neely Bryan. I wonder if that, you've heard a lot of Bryans in the news. Built in the Romanesque style. We've heard it all before. Sold at a purchased by Harold Byrd. Dry hole. An oil man. Civil Air Patrol, where Oswald worked with his boyfriend David Ferry, Byrd's cousin. Polar explorer. Huh. And they got that all hooked up with John Sexton and Company. This guy owned one of the largest landfills, but he only rented the land from the largest property owner in Cook County, the Roman Catholic Church. Don't get me started. We're going with, is it at the North Pole, man? You guys all think it is. Itchy ears. Another D.H. Byrd dry hole. You got to look at this guy, man. Bush's friend. The Koch brothers, who prop up and say, we love the John Birch Society because it's all about America. Check it out. See if I'm wrong. So homeostasis, we have to get it, just touch the base because we're going deep tonight. Biology, homeostasis. It's kind of what their version of, they call it hoiastas, when it's like their Trinity spirit, something. Maybe we'll get to it. In biology, a homeostasis is the steady internal physical and chemical conditions of you monkey people who don't believe in a creator, maintained by a living system, not something that God created. This is the first time in history we've had a government, a world go, there is no God. Ha ha ha. That was all a joke, is what they say. And everybody else in the world said it was flat, but ha ha, it's not. Socrates figured it out. So it's all about body temperature and fluid balance. Well, that I agree. That's some important things. Blood sugars, whatever they're describing is our temple in our world. The concept. Man, you just missed the grossest cough. I had a Luger I had to hack out. That's why you can pause these things. At the beginning of a marathon, you can just confess those things. Oh, cybernetics. 1926. Huh. Leading up to that fateful 1933 year. Year before, Joseph Bancroft was the first to say that higher brain function required the most stable internal environment. Thus, Mr. Barcroft, homeostasis was not only organized by the brain, it served the brain. Join the Borg. Don't be a sheep, be a goat. Join the Borg. Because if you're a sheep, God will find you. You'll hear his voice and he will not stop. Homeostasis. Hey, wow, a year ago, this was in the news. Then it was like, here's why God's judging us.
Including working with organized crime or drug cartels or what have you. And the decades later, like in the 80s, for example, it's all justified by quote unquote anti-communism and stuff like that.
And so I really appreciate you.
Yeah, you can just get away. If you go, I am sorry I had to do it. The dude was a commie. Oh, so you had to support them. Yeah, we had to support them. Or they'd be commies. Oh, okay. You're marketing children, and they're killing and cooking and eating them. Well, I forgot to show my thing I like to show. Anyway, everybody knows you got to get the heads up on the down low. What? Is that on the desktop or the documents where I always go to get that thing? It's not documents. Am I on the right one? Or am I on my school? Dang. Where's that one thing I always show about the free use? I got to pull it up. I got to open a new tab, get that free use sign. Copyright. What's their problem, Like, they don't got enough money. It was this fair use law doctrine, you got to ship it out there. They're going to show one of those things? Huh? No, they're just going to do, you know, somebody's got to make money. You got to make money. Did I did copyright. Creative works, free use, copyright notice template. Huh. Go back and view it. Okay. This stuff I'm not going to try to make any money off it, you know. They've got all these laws that are applicable in Europe, and I don't trust this one at all. Jeez. That's like YouTube. They love to get you on that. Get you some strikes, get you worried about it. I think it was on my desktop. I'm just not sure. Okay, now we're good. I feel better. Hopefully you feel better. You know, they're cooking and eating people. And some people just don't care. They're going like, maybe Jesus is taking them to the North Pole. Wow. I don't want to do the Shunganite again. Or the Fullerene. Maybe. We haven't gone there yet. So, but well, I'm gonna pick this apart. This isn't supposed to be the part where I'm like, oh, I should be as nice to this guy as possible. Looks like somebody got 11 replies on a comment that was left what they say was 1 day ago. The North Pole Camp of Saints is the worst idea yet. Totally childish, debunked idea. And that's I couldn't agree more. Do you have a better idea? Well, the Bible has a better idea. It's not according to Mercator's or no, it's Albert Duras. We'll get the guy's name. He's a big glober. He worked for the Roman Catholics, and he came up with something that might fit. And this guy's acting like there's a lot of maps. No, there's not. Definitely not debunked, even if it's, yes, it is debunked. What do these people know? They're just shooting their mouth off. They didn't even bother to click on my thing here and look it up and go like, oh, he wrote the book on mud flood before he even knew what the mud flood was. Yeah, in 2008, I wrote a book about people coming out of a cave from a virus and being fed information. So they think, oh, it's most likely because I trust in science. See, that's how a knee-jerk reaction. Somebody challenged my, this is my guy. This is what Theron and Shelley were talking about last year when they were going to go to the North Pole. He was going to get a boat and everybody's going to get on board. They're going to take their children up there because the warm water path is going to open up for them. This is dangerous, deadly, stupid theory. That requires a man who believes in the globe Earth and worked for the Rosicrucian. Look at Daniel. He has not an original thought. None of the ideas that he's putting out now and trying to sell a homeschool program like what I'm here to write a book about. But if he wants to do it, there's plenty of room for this market as we see who's rightly dividing the word. You look so serious. This is your job now. Is it your calling also, or is it your job first? You know this sells. You can't believe you got so few subscribers, you said on your other channel. You know you're shadow banned. So dramatic.
Welcome to the show today. I am your host, Daniel Collier, and we are on The Search For. Today we are looking at the millennial reign of Christ and the camp of the saints. For you who do not know about this,
wow, you know, showing an image of the white Jesus is just really a bad way to start for a lot of people that are going to be critiquing this.
there are many who believe.
But if you're going basically for, support this, go for Trump, because there's immigrants coming, that's probably part of your message.
That Jesus Christ has already returned and reigned for 1,000 years, and now resides in what's called the camp of the saints. Why?
Does the Bible ever say that he resides in the camp of the saints? Or is there a rescue in Revelation 20, verse 9? Gathered the armies of Gog and Magog and went on the plains of the earth to encompass the camp of the saints. And a fire came down. Didn't come out of the camp of the saints. Daniel, if that is your real name, it probably is.
Why do they believe this? Well,
Why do you say something that the Bible doesn't say? You probably got it from the book of Enoch or one of those other extra biblical books that this theory relies on with your insanity.
partially because of evidence that is arising now that proves that history has.
Wow. Saints camp. We're going to go over this whole verse. But Jesus is here? Huh. And I saw them as they went up on the broad plain of the earth and surrounded God's people. And it says the beloved city. Well, that's not what it means. It's not a Polen in Greek. It's not. But fire came down from heaven. So is the city in heaven? No. It's just more itchy ear. But yeah. Ooh, gosh, gee whiz. We could go there. Why can't we get up to the North Pole? Because they'll kill you. You don't think they got a lot of shenanigans going on up there? They don't want you to, they're launching balloons left and right. My goodness, they'll kill you. They marched over the broad plain of the earth, surrounded the camp of the saints. And that saints just is the same word as any other saints. It doesn't mean, but this thing, because it's in Revelation, is different. And you should picture that they turn into angels and live for 1,000 years. No, it's not what the words say. Beloved barracks, beloved safe place is more like it. Saints is saints. The bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep. The fathers with his holy angels. Their saints are set apart to do good works that glorify God's name after they've been, their heart's been changed. They've been brought, they were dead in their sins. They were made alive in Christ Jesus. That's simple. It only means holy saints. It's always the same thing. If you've been called and set apart in your life for Christ, you're a saint. You know, we can go down to Revelation. It's the same thing. This is used 200 times. There are good angels set apart. There's the faith of the set apart humans. It's the blood of the saints and the prophets. Set apart ones. Nobody is going to be like, they live, these are different. They're going to live for 1,000 years. Por favor. This city, okay. So it says probably. Looks like it could, came into his own city. Well, that's a pretty good argument. So the city that having been beloved, but fire came down. Well, so it's all going to be what is the camp. No, it's barracks and castle. Plural. Barracks. And we know that the Starfort barracks are pretty darn nice, don't we? What they call the barracks, they turn into city blocks of apartments. Barracks castle, barracks castle. Camp. Could be the North Pole. That's what, you don't think that Strong's Concordance and these other people cooked these books? That's like saying you believe in the Mandela effect, that gee whiz, they never would have thought ahead 25 years where they're going to film Dolly with braces and without braces. Oh my goodness, we can't give them that much credit. Oh gosh, oh gee whiz. They pump it up. A camp, where did it say a camp except where they added it to that? Barracks, castle. And why? How dare they put in Hebrew things about the camp in the Israel desert because they're trying to tie it in, to where the word's not even used in Hebrews 13. Is it? Is that the same word? Burn was outside the camp? They had something going on in that camp. It wasn't a barracks. It's not going to be where, the sacred, it's the New Testament barracks. It's like when Paul got let out of a window a couple of different times. We know now it was a Starfort deal. Rahab the harlot had her house on the corner of a wall. They're the ones that trying to use First Maccabees, another made-up book, so they could have a made-up war that, gives them a time when they could fake the abomination of desolation. That's simple. It's that simple. They were cooking and eating people.
You reported on this. Why is no one else seemingly? I haven't heard anything about this until people told me about your book. So why is no one else or are other people reporting this?
Well, I think it's been written on before, but I don't think it's been the story's been told the same way. I guess I sort of strung it together. I'm sort of giving you 100-year history. I think there are people that have written about Operation Underworld specifically, but not necessarily like recently, because it was something that was.
It's the mafia, Operation Underworld. You know it if you've watched this channel. While we're waiting for the other people who are like, oh, you just don't know. Okay, come at 7 and defend your, Admiral Byrd theory.
Let be known maybe like 20 years ago or something.
And so they're still not letting us know about the Kennedy assassination. So you can't actually, but what did you uncover anything that would lead to any knowledge about that and the CIA's involvement? Because I had Ray McGovern on Wednesday, and he said that there definitely was.
So from what I understand, there have been some successful efforts to get new information out from the documents they've been trying not to release that more or less are being described as smoking gun evidence that Lee Harvey Oswald had established relationship with the CIA. So I didn't really deal with the Kennedy assassination directly.
And think about it. He went to Russia and came back during the Cold War. Started acting like, oh, I still love the communists. I just left to come back here and love them from America. Come on. Come on now, people. White Jesus. Fairy tale castles. Admiral Byrd at the North Pole. Sure, Daniel. Any original thoughts?
Has been altered to such an extreme that we now question the realities of what we were taught in school, what we learned in church, and what is happening in the world today. Remember that Jesus looked at those who were standing there, and he said to them, there are those of you who are standing here who will not taste death until you see the return.
We all know this theology. He
the
didn't
Son
think
of
of
Man.
it. He's going to make money off of it. And he's mad that people aren't lining up, that other people are getting the business.
Truly, I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom.
Meaning that in their lifetime, he would be returning. And based on that evidence, there are many people who now believe, because of the great and grand structures of castles and buildings and structures and cathedrals and the ability to build these things with resonance frequencies and the ability to create these beautiful structures that make no sense under the timelines and the historical narratives that we were taught, such as Postcards.
How many people have we heard say this in the last 8 years?
Chisels that existed in those days. When Jesus looked at those
They
and
come
said,
and they go.
and I go to prepare a place for you.
They all get tripped up by Mind Unveiled and
now, these are theories, but they are
Michelle
now,
Gibson,
as people are beginning to learn that there is much more
Theron,
we have been taught.
Shelley.
So in the Search For series today, we were looking at the possibility of the location
Paul
of the
Stokes, Understanding Conspiracy. They buy into Enoch a lot.
To go to war against Jesus and his saints.
Revelation 20 verse 9, and Satan's army marched across the earth and gathered around the camp of God's people and the city God loves. But fire came down from heaven and burned them up. Tin and Satan, who tricked them, was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur with the beast and the false prophet. There they will be punished day and night forever and ever. People of the world are judged. 11 Then I saw a great white throne and the one who was sitting on it. Earth and sky ran away from him and disappeared.
In the old world maps, we see that.
In the old world map, we see what? One guy made a map like this. There were others where this isn't even the magnetic mountain. It's this small thing over here. This is a joke that leads people to Jules Verne. And should we consider the hollow earth? And oh my goodness. No, the old map showed Jerusalem in the center of the Sahara Desert and in Africa. You know, it's time to wake up and admit the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, and you're messing around in spiritual things. You haven't counted the cost, man.
The North, even going back into ancient legends, on these maps, you will see that the earth and the structures of the land look much different than what we see now. And there seems to be a center location, some call Black Rock area, and that there is.
That's not just tickling their ears, is it? Mapamundis is just another word for, old map. What are we seeing? What are we looking at here? The North Pole or Jerusalem? Come on, man. It's flat. This is the map of the earth. This is what the old maps show us. This is a map of Mundi. This is the old map. What you got is a Middle Age map, 1300s, 1400s is what they say. You got to figure it out now with the Tertullian lines. You even know that's from Portugal, you know, that they're the one that, it's the slave trade, man. Mappa Mundis. It's like a eyeball Earth. This is a beautiful one for eyeball Earth. I wonder if there's any bigger. Nope. I don't know. Black Rock, anybody? Black Rock? Anybody? Anybody see? Go up here on the globe to the top, and then there's not a wall of ice. You know, it's different. Yeah, because it's different. Is this a map of Mundi? Some of these maps, I'll tell you. Wow, is this a big one? Well, that's Jerusalem, and all you click the middle of the map, right? Pretty close to the middle. This is you're barking up the wrong tree, Daniel. The old maps are not, you know, Ortiz. What is this guy's name?
Is a narrow strait that is the entranceway to the camp of the saints. And there is scripture that we also read where it says, narrow is the way, when it is talking about.
Wow, that's not. You're really, yeah, narrow is the way. So it means there's the pathway up to a middle age globe earthers, because other people have said it, and they're still selling, getting hits and clicks, so you can too, right?
Getting to heaven. So it is bizarre in some ways, but it is possible that the interpretations or what has been taught to us could very well be a misinterpretation or a purposeful misinterpretation to hide in this.
That scripture is lying about something, right? Scripture's got to be lying that Jesus is in the camp, but some fire comes down from heaven. Yeah, there's a big contradiction there. And I'm telling you, people don't like the contradictions, man.
Short season, if it is true, to hide where this camp of the saints is and the truth of the story that Jesus did reign for 1,000 years, and that now the saints are in this place the Bible referred to as the.
All in one place. All the saints from the whole world are in one place. Not in barracks that they found and are living a life without 5G and away from the cities that are going to be burning in destruction. Totally righteous judgment is upon these people. And you're talking narrow road?
The camp of the saints. And they are there until a time when Satan gathers his armies of the world to go to battle against. So what we are looking at now is trying to decipher and figure out where this camp of the saints is. Those who believe in a flat earth model map believe that it is in the center area called the North Pole. There are also some who believe that it's beyond the ice wall in Antarctica. Now, this possibility could be real, as we have seen ancient maps as well, showing that there is land masses beyond the Antarctica. We do have maps of ancient times showing Antarctica with animals and castles and people living there not that long ago. In fact, maps that go back 1,500 years.
Did you see those lines? Those are the Petrifying lines that lead to their sunburst that could help them navigate on a globe. He's showing you a globe map.
Showing Antarctica with animals and castles and people living there not that long ago. In fact, maps that go back 1,500 years showing that it's possible that this freeze or whatever has taken place from this thing called the mud flood and the freezing of Antarctica and all these things that took place could have been a more recent event than we have been told. We do know that.
Could it be less than 1,000 years? No. All we know is that there was 1,000 years and then Satan was loosed. And we have made up Julian calendars, Gregorian calendars, Hebrew calendars, Mayan calendars.
Quite a lot of things were altered in the early 1900s and late 1800s in our history books and in our schools. And it only takes a couple generations to erase the knowledge of the past. So what we're looking at in this odd sense of the word is it true that the camp of the saints?
This is called a straw man. Because he's going to, prove NASA's lying and fake the globe. And somehow
either in the North Pole or beyond the Arctic wall. We do know that the Earth is larger than what we've been told. The images of the blue marble that we have been shown for so many years all stem from
he's not using the Bible to prove his point at all of how it could be on the top of a globe from the Middle Ages. And he hasn't answered the question, who sent the fire down from heaven if Jesus was with him at the camp of the saints. Honestly, Theron was teaching that he was in boats, rowboats, big rowboats, with the camp of the saints, and they're waiting for people to come up through the warm water passage that the Lord will provide. Anyway, so, they got the NASA thing. And here, is there any proof at all besides this one supposedly Hindu map? And now everybody believes, there's lands outside. It's all conjecture. There's nothing in the Bible that says worry about anything except what the Bible says worry about. Our domed eyeball Earth.
You cannot go.
It's more nonsense.
Falls
It's a
into
couple
play
minutes
here.
on nonsense.
But today we
prove that the Earth is a globe, or that the North Pole is the center now, and it's somehow Jesus is over here. This is extra biblical nonsense back to the map that doesn't prove a damn thing.
But we find this is not actually true. So the research that we have done in Search For is looking into the actual place of the camp of the saints. We know that this area, from legend and even in current times, no one is allowed to travel there. But we find a bizarre documentary of this from an admiral. His name.
Oh, wow.
Admiral Byrd. He was the most decorated and the youngest admiral.
And how do you think that happens? How does that happen in our world, Daniel, and you people watching? And believe me, I'm doing this out of love. I want you to realize, you know this already. He's one of them. He's one of those guys that was born. Here's how you put your hand in your waist. Superheating electrons that make up the ionosphere. Okay. We're looking at some pictures now. I'm going to double check to make sure I'm sharing. I should be. We get rid of that. Anybody that here is wanting to do that debate thing? Now let's go back to where we were. Not there, not there. Okay, so we're going to keep it on Byrd while we go through some pictures. I don't know, blame, somebody said this, so I copied and pasted it just to see where, and of course, in my algorithm, everything comes up Spinoza. So don't blame me for everything they made you believe. Stop reading alleged sacred scripture that have nothing to do with me. If you can't read me in that's your Spinoza, that's your Freemason. That's popped up when I searched that. Here's another thing that's weird. The man who, released the psyop of that all the chronologies are messed up and that the dark ages weren't that dark. They still are pushing the white thing. This is a Russian man on a Russian show that is so scripted. It's unbelievable. I picked out some of the quotes for you, and I just want to show you the introduction later. But they believe that it's genetically ingrained. It's in the genetics. They have you looking for Nephilim, like the Bible could be untrue. That we're not all related to those 8 souls that were on the ark. Whether you're a giant person or not right now, if you look like a human, you're a human, and you came off the ark. It's not genetic. All tongues, all tribes. Manifestations of imperial memory. So this Russian psyop, and that's what it was, because that's how mafias work. It works on their people. They're believing that they're special. They're genetically, they understand that Putin is taking them back because they have imperial memories, imperial aspirations, and the imperial accomplishments that should be expected. America from the 1300s to the late 1600s in history textbooks, it doesn't surprise people, reflections of one empire that, according to our hypothesis, existed in Eurasia and partially what we call Egypt on this channel. It is our fate, our cross, our star. The new chronology unexpectedly led to a consequence. Did I miss a picture? It says partially in America, so those two were out of date, out of order, I think. We'll see on the thing. So they're now, it's in their genetics, imperial impulses, and it's their fate. Their cross, their star. Russia is determined. They've set their intent on this. They're the last great hope for white world. And they've sacrificed 30 million to the cause, allegedly, in World War II. So they're used to fighting to the death. To develop differently, or is it our fate to eternally attempt to restore its imperial status? This is a brand new video, people, from the legend Anatoli Fomenko, who's looking remarkably young for his age. Problems might stem from incorrect ellipse dates. This is how my interest in new chronology began. Oh, so we're going backwards. Morozov, he finds out that this genius that lived 90 years, almost, told everybody in Russia, hey, our chronology's wrong. And then he started studying him, and with some errors in the dating of ancient eclipses, and that they needed correction. He proposed, so he's there, I'm going to just plug in what Morozov said to Isaac Newton's numbers, because he explained the laws of gravitation, this generated significant interest in his mind. Well, you should look it up. Anatoli, he's still a glober. This guy had some more information too. He discovered a certain effect in the moon's behavior, a leap in its acceleration that couldn't then and still can't be explained on a globe. My first drink on the marathon, maybe a little bit too much lemon juice, but I could get used to it real quick. It's funny that they needed a high vitamin C fruit. And so they developed one so that they could get on the ships and go get slaves. That's what happened. It's acceleration. Before me, there was a remarkable work. So it's just telling I'm building on the shoulders of giants for our imperial fate. Equations of the moon's motions. You could write it all off. We spent they glorify Russia and the Sputnik. We'll always have to be number one. That's what Russia thinks. It's our fate to always have to be number one. Back in the 50s, Princeton's undergraduate by the name of Hugh Everett III embroiled himself in the wonderful and wacky world of quantum physics. He became familiar with the ideas of Niels Bohr, Heisenberg, Schrödinger, and his dead and alive cat, studied under Bob Dickey and Gene Wigner. Then he got his PhD, wave mechanics without probability. Oh, okay. You don't have to understand quantum mechanics by the method of universal wave function. He just said that. Eventually, after further edits and trimming, it was republished under the name Wave Mechanics Without Probability. And though he referred to his theory as the relative state formation, it was rebranded as the many worlds interpretation in the 60s and 70s. Thought you might want to know that. July 24, 2013, in that Gizmodo. You ever hear of that? The Gizmodo? It's where they published it. If this theory is correct, we may live in a web of alternative timelines. The many worlds interpretation of quantum physics has been around nearly 60 years. It's a highly controversial idea which suggests that our world and everything in it is constantly splitting into Biff 10 and type alternative timelines. Dock in your time machine. Well, if that is correct, here's what your true existence might actually be like. Over 100 years ago, the discovery of quantum physics ruined the party because Schrodinger's cat could be dead and alive if you want it to be. And you could also, you have to believe that dark matter, 90%, 97% of the world and Earth and universe and in their dream world is dark matter. And you have to pretend it's there. Something else happened. Over 100 years ago, thanks to quantum mechanics, now we know that matter takes on properties of both particles and waves. Oh, so light now is matter? Because I know they said that the dual slit experiment proves that particle and waves. What's more, thanks to Werner Heisenberg and Edward Schrödinger, we can never be certain about a particle's momentum and position, nor can we be certain about the object's state when it is not being observed. It might be in the forest not making a sound when it falls over. Do you understand where the educated people of this world have millstoned you? So some people saw this in the air and they took pictures of it during the hurricane. Because, you know, in my world, I can say, I believe in weather modification. I don't think you have to. I think they'll have a pretty good argument against it, but some people saw it. And there it was. Our core body temperature is regulated by a homeostatic mechanism with temperature sensors in, amongst others, the hypothalamus of the brain. So when they studied all of that, you know, the Nazis and the Japanese and the Russians and the United States with their MK Ultra, we let all those people go that studied it because it was worth it. Because it pointed them to that if they can destroy the hypothalamus, calcify your pineal gland, in their mind, they don't even know that that's not going to stop the narrow road. And the people that they're calcifying, and they would have been on their team anyway. They're not one called, two chosen, and three have no desire to be faithful. Well, it says menstrual cycle. We don't want to go there. So anyway, the Order of the Black Eagle's Yellow Sash. You ever heard of it? It's a big thing that they run our country after the reset. The Order of the Black Eagle. You ever heard of it? Germany, Russia, United States, Great Britain, they're all in on it. They even allowed Japan to be in the Order of the Garter. Treated them like they were white until they almost won World War II. He did it. This guy. That guy. This is from Jump Street. This was their skull and crossbones. 322. George Bush. George Bush hates black people. You could explain this away, Daniel? You're scratching the surface using other people's material. Why don't they buy my books? Dude, that's the least of your worries. Your city's going to burn, man.
He led several trips to the Antarctic,
Did he
studying
really?
the area, and even claimed that when they went down there with a fleet of ships, that they encountered UFOs and entered into battle with them and lost that battle and came back with a crippled fleet. So this is quite
And, you know, was it the Nazis? Was it
bizarre. But the most odd encounter is his trip to the north, going to
Asgardia, going into the hollow earth. Now, if you don't think this is a fair warning that I'm not standing on the, you know, alluding to the watchtower and saying, hey, there's a fire. You're jumping into the fire, man. You're jumping into a hollow earth theory. You're leaving behind so much good information because your itchy ears won't let you stop.
The North Pole, and his encounters then with being his airplane being taken over and then guided in by craft and
just like the way Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. He just like his instincts took over and a miracle happened.
Without them, the craft landed his airplane and he was taken into a city. Now, what's very strange about all this.
Are you going to believe that? Because he said so in some interview. Come on.
Being an admiral, it would be odd that he would make very crazy claims on a funded mission that when he passed away, because they began trying to label him as crazy,
yeah, I wonder why.
And confiscated his all of his notes, his works, and his recordings of the events that happened.
I wonder why he would throw away his reputation on such a preposterous idea so that people could dig it up 60 years later? Maybe. We make it easy for them, people.
Crowded and quite covered up. There is a reason for this, and we do not believe that it is someone hiding some kind of protective technology for their country. We believe that it is a systematic and a worldwide cover-up to hide this information from you, from the knowledge of where the camp of the saints is.
Wow. We saw the camp of the saints as a barracks or a castle. It isn't a place where everybody gathers. There's going to be wherever 2 or 3 gather in a safe place and wait on the Lord that's not in a 5G city. I don't see how they can get where they're getting. It is itchy ears. It's conspiracy. And now you're ready to think Jesus is waiting for you in the middle of the hollow earth. Could the Bible be truer when it says not many wise have been called? This is being pointed out to you. And he's going to, he's going to sell his stuff now.
Create scenarios that answer the questions, hard questions about life and how we might be being deceived about the world we have been taught about. Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen a headline and thought, there's got to be more to this? Everybody has, and nowadays especially. What if you could dig a little deeper into it and find out stuff?
All you got to do is just sign up. He's already got a plan. He's that,
But look, it's all for entertainment, mostly. So if you're curious, if you like to live outside the box, or if you just want to see what they may not want you to see, you can check it out below. It is what we use for most of our alternative theories in our podcast and our videos, because it is the formula that possibly someone uses to pull the wool over the world's eyes. You're going to love this formula. Get it in the link below. You get a video that comes along with the training.
Wow, so he got an original thing. There you go. What were you doing before you got into flat earth? And the theory that the Lord showed me, because I'm to trust everything that he said is true. Millionaire mindset. Flash the Rolex.
Recruitment process was subtle but deliberate. They didn't appear in dark robes or perform sacrificial rituals, at least not at first. The fallen angels whispered through dreams, through influential figures, and through ideologies disguised as philosophies or religions. A struggling politician, a high-ranking military official, or a rising tech mogul would be approached, quietly, efficiently, and without spectacle.
What does he got going here? Get the formula. Limited time, get a free digital copy of Reason to Believe. Digital paperback. Wow. Maybe we can come back to it if anybody shows up that wants to defend it. In the meantime, we got fullerenes. I guess these things, fight aging, acupuncture, something that we got to look into. Our modern medicine is not the answer. There's a soccer ball, they can make a globe into the flat earth. Number of ways. Just thought I'd flash on that for a second. So supposedly you conspiracy theorists are into the fact that tons of misinformation related to 5G as presented as facts. And the facts are 1G is not good for your brain. They were saying when it was 1G, don't hold it near your skull. And now it's 5G. That's all people like me are trying to say. My goodness, how much more do we need since Benghazi, 9/11, 2012? It doesn't matter if you do a survey in the U.S. and ask people whether government is doing these things. You're always going to get the majority or no, our government is good and they should leave Taylor Swift alone. tin hats, everyone. Do it. So Peter the Great, he started it all. The Russian guy with the imperialist bent. They want to get back to that imperialism. When Peter the Great went to Europe and learned all about how to come back as an absolute monarch and an autocrat with a well-ordered police state, a dictator. That's what they all want. That's what it's all coming down to. All of it under the United Nations. He introduced the Julian calendar, replaced the Byzantine calendar. But the Russian Orthodox held fast, sure. And he famously founded St. Petersburg. And he told them, I saw this, a building like this, while I was visiting Europe, and I forgot how to speak Russian while I was there, but they loved him. And in their police state, they said, we'll build it. Just tell us, because we have 3 months to work out of the year before it freezes in the frozen tundra. And this is just one of the many marvels that is St. Petersburg that they owe, because they love the imperial tradition now more than ever. They're ready to fight, and they're already making sure we don't. Fentanyl, methamphetamine is on every corner. Do you know the logistics it takes to get fentanyl on every corner in a town above 1,000? Even those people up there in the Asheville, North Carolina area, you think that they don't have fentanyl, methamphetamine up there? St. Petersburg, yeah, St. Peter the Great. You got it all. You know, in their history, it's the world is going to believe that guy did it. And Russia today is like, damn, we need some more Peter the Great. Starfort Master. I'll show you how to build a city. Now, we all know he dug it up and cleaned it out. It's all after the mud flood. The mud flood was Armageddon. What happened after the 1,000 years? Put in your sickle and reap to two different angels. One reaped the good, one reaped the bad, because that's what they were waiting for, why the wheat and the tares grew together. That's why Paul said, some of you that live grievous wolves. Well, that might be an extrapolation too far. They cleaned up the streets, people. Looks like New York, right? Well, yeah, of course it does. It'll all wash over you at one time. You know what you believe. He didn't do it. This is somebody else. This is Mark Antony or El Cid. It's not even their clothes they wore. You can't stand that tower up. You can't make this baloney up and think, oh, well, I solved it now. It's a hollow earth. Jules Verne. Peter the Great didn't do this, but they in Russia believe he did. And they're tired of the petrodollar. And the United States just got broke because the insurance companies can't afford all the floods and the hurricanes, and it's been going on. This is fake. Anatoli Fomenko and the Russian guy. Come on, people, now. Smile on your brother.
So I recently read this book, and it's called The Company by Stephen R. Brown, and it's about the rise and fall of the Hudson's Bay Empire. So I thought, why don't I make a video showing at what extent the Hudson's Bay Company and the fur trade in general.
Because that's might explain, without need of a hollow earth, of well, why all of a sudden the Sahara is a desert. and people need warm clothes all of a sudden, something changed. It was the reaping. It was the reaping. Hudson Bay. Blame the Indians.
Exploring the coast of the Hudson's Bay. Groseilliers and Radisson arrived back in Nouvelle-France, leading 60 canoes and 300 indigenous traders and loaded with a mountain of fur. They were celebrated
Mountains
as
of
heroes by the
furs.
populace, but the governor of the colony,
Because they were freezing to death. This company is still, Hudson Bay Company is still in business. We're rolling. What? ¿Dónde está per aquí? So I looked that up. Did I get any Espinoza? To start off with, let's see our 5 Spanish location words based on distance. Huh. This was a long time ago. I'm busy. Huh. Mind Unveiled. They got over 250,000 subscribers. And all they've done is just use the information that they've shown and put it out there in weird ways. Of course they had to repopulate the earth. There were babies for sale. The rest of their theology, anybody can glean what they've learned from this channel, but it doesn't mean that they're doing it for the right reason. Yeah, they were selling babies. Some they raised, some they cooked and ate in crazy world.
Merchant handling postcards, we need to talk about the first ever narrative film. While there were short films and moving pictures before this, the first narrative movie with an actual storyline was La Fée aux Choux from 1896. This movie shows a fairy who's not just a magical being, but acts more like a merchant, handling multiple parentless children quite abruptly. So, do you find anything cute about that? The card is literally branding itself as a trustworthy establishment and emphasizes a no-return policy. Is this trying to point towards something much deeper? Also note the Rex label at the bottom right corner. This indicates one of the studios involved in creating these postcards. They weren't
Rex
the
means
only
king.
ones, but it seems they had a role in distributing these cards. There could be a connection to Rex theaters and centers to help you make your purchase. So we're forced to ask, what's going on here? It's not just an odd historical artifact. These postcards serve as a window into an unsettling era, one that treated the youngest members of society as mere products, complete with selling points and no
You wanna
return
think they
policies.
tried to talk about a hollow earth.
Yes, these are babies
That's where
being
this is
sold in
leading?
a cart. The cabbages are symbolic of them being grown and sold as produce. This card proclaims, "The cries of Paris. Here are pretty cabbage heads, babies, not expensive." Are we to understand that these children were being sold at bargain prices? Any life or activity? The child is bored, but that boredom seems to hint at something far more unsettling. What are we to make of this? An empty street? A bored child for sale? Could this be suggestive of a larger, darker issue at play?
You think?
Maybe these children weren't just bored. Maybe they were neglected, or worse, trapped in a system that viewed them as goods rather than as human beings.
Oh, you mean like if you want a job today, you go to the human resource department? Kind of like that?
Moving on, here's another depiction of a baby store. Let's break down the text. Child market, beautiful opportunities. Choose the cutest, large selection of babies. So a large selection of babies. Once again, note the text at the bottom. A vendu. These babies are for sale. This isn't just some quirky oddball postcard.
Avenir means for
Now this
sale.
one's super interesting.
This will be the last one.
This postcard belongs to the multi-babies, water babies category within our collection. This card is unique, however, because of the writing on the back. It's dated to 1907 from the postmark and was actually sent in the US. The message says, Dear L, don't you think they are very pretty on the other side? If so, hurry up and order one before they get sold. Love from Agi. So
I see. Is this the time when they used to have to dip their pen every so often? I know, it's weird.
hold up. It's not just a surreal artwork. This person is saying to the receiving end that they need to hurry up and put in an order before they get sold? That's beyond weird, and it seems to suggest that this is more than just art.
It's the orphan trains. It's everything. So this was just some of the people, join me tonight with your big talk, It's more than likely because I trust the science. How can you rule it out when you cannot even provide a link or anything debunking it? Well, these people know. Really? Do they even see? Do they even know who this is? So to get his Wikipedia page, you have to ask for it. Pseudoscience. It's going to be Atlantis. Uh-oh. Ostracized by his army of followers when he revealed his Jewish roots. Well, duh. Redemption through sin. No, we don't need, they need to study my stuff. It's in the eyeballs. Eyeball earth. We're on the lens. Foundations can be moved and not shaken. If RJ was here, I would have him read this. But are you confused when the Bible is clear about something? Because here's something that's clear, and I'm still sharing, so we need to go over this. Isaiah 53. Who has believed our message? To whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Now, unless it's revealed, I guess you don't see it. Unless your eyes are open. So I hope it's been revealed to you. Verse 2, he grew up before him like a tender shoot, like a root out of dry ground. He had no stately form or majesty to attract us, no beauty that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief, like one from whom men hid their faces. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he took on our infirmities and carried our sorrows, yet we considered him stricken by God, struck down and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace, the punishment was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed. We all like sheep have gone astray. Each one has turned to his own way, and the Lord has laid upon him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And who can recount his descendants? For he was cut off from the land of the living. He was stricken for the transgressions of my people. He was assigned a grave with the wicked and with a rich man in his death, although he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it was the Lord's will to crush him and cause him to suffer. And when his soul is made a guilt offering, he will see his offspring. He will prolong his days, and the good pleasure of the Lord will prosper his hand after the anguish of his soul. He will see the light of life and be satisfied. By his knowledge, my righteous servant will justify many, and he will bear their iniquities. Therefore, I will allot him a portion with the great, and he will divide the spoils with the strong, because he has poured out his life unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors. Yet he bore the sin of many and made intercession for the saints. Who? For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. The government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on the throne of David, the covenant keeper. Was it wise for David to repent, admit he was wrong, and become not only the example of how to live, but how to repent? God said that you covenant keeping David over his kingdom, that will be established. It will be sustained with justice and righteousness from that time on forever and ever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will accomplish this. Our eyelid is where it's happening, and it's where we even have, what are they called, that live in your eyelids? There's a sty that's no good. Stress, hair follicles, Demotex. I misspelled it. It's not Demotex, Demodex. This is something that lives on dogs and humans, because dogs are our best friends. And as humans, we need these. They keep in the temple of God. If you're doing your best and your intent is set right, they clean your eyelashes, and they make them as active as a spider at picking up what in the world's going on. You might think, and there are, there's the good ones that can live on dogs and humans, and they don't infect each other. It's a miracle from God. They come out at night like a bed bug when they know you're asleep. And there's always a fresh batch of them, because God loves you. Demotex canis is the natural host of the domestic dog. The mites can survive on immunosuppressed human skin, and human mites can infect immunosuppressed dogs. Well, that's why you should feed your dogs not crappy cardboard, and get if you love your dog, you'll buy them non-genetically modified food. You'll find a way. And your dog will make it worth your while. You have no idea what potential your dog has. We'll look at a few glands now that are in your body that you'll need to know about. The Meibomian sebaceous gland around the rims of the eyelid, inside the tarsal plate. It produces meibium, an oily substance that prevents evaporation of the eye's tear film, so that your tears aren't going spilling onto your cheek all the time. They're about 25 on the upper eyelid, 20 or so on the lower lid. They've known about it since, well, we don't believe that they are telling the truth about 200 AD, because it was the golden age where people came out of caves. It wasn't a continuation of history. And this guy knew that guy, and this guy knew that guy, and nothing really happened to Rome after Armageddon. Are you kidding me? There's a couple of bad decisions. One is choosing Barabbas. The other one would be being a Christian and trusting in hollow earth. You know, these things are not compatible. So we got, you know, glands, it's the lipids. Didn't even know about them until 1981. We're all learning this now. We're all learning it now. The gland of Zeiss, another sebaceous gland on the margin of the eyelid. Wow, it's almost like the modified apocrine sweat gland that is found on the margin of the eyelid. You know, the eyelid, eventually it's all leading to the water of life, that you are a living stone to be fit into the body of Christ. Mall's gland, ciliary gland, is a modified? Really? Did that happen during evolution? Another one found on the margin of the island. Everything on the eyelid. Why do I keep saying island? Huh. I don't know if I'm going to marathon this. The pineal gland. It's another one there. It's right by. It's in between your eyes. It's that whole, you know, pine cone thing. You attach into it. You don't let it get calcified. With it, you seek God. You're drawn to him. You'll hear his voice. You'll hit your knees. You'll confess he is Lord. Or you're not saved. You're not going to be saved. Glands. Where am I? I looked up something. I clarified my looking up. Huh, that's just a great picture. Tarsal glands. Here we are. Everything flesh consists because of the word. Word is a vibration. He opens our eyes, he opens our ears, or he does not. But everybody, I think, in the world is finally learning, you know, wow, they cover one eye, the left-hand path, the eyes have it, glands. This is like how they get their tree of life with their 7 chakras. Kind of like that. See how they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And, you know, hey, who wants to look into acupuncture, you know, and say, like, they cut people's head open and ask them, if I touch this, do you smell purple? This is the tarsal plate on your eyelid. They all have a releasing proteins. It's like what I show you when I sliver the rocks, you know, that you see, oh, hey, look at all those pretty colors inside the rock. Who knew? Well, now you know. Here's your anterior surface. Mohibian glands. Well, we heard that it produces that little. If you don't want to cry all the time, say thank you, Mohibian. Back. Covered by, it's not conjunctivitis, it's conjunctiva. You got to have it. The eyeball. If there are any extra lands, I feel sorry for them because we're eyeball Earth. There's nothing better than that. This is everything. Our eyeball Earth, our disc, our domed thing. It's all pointing to Jesus Christ. These are the muscles that open and close your eyelids. It's like a little, you know, marbled meat, because that's what you are. And your little eyelashes grow like right here. Just a very fine little place where they can stick out. There's not, you know. We already went over this. Oh, these are all the Hudson Bay forts. I just don't wait. I mean, they were all getting fur because people were cold, man. They would trade them 20 knives, 20 metal knives for one beaver fur. And the business was booming. And then, well, they pit each other. You know, it was a way to make money. And then they said, you know what? That's better if you're just our slave. Hudson Bay, they're still in business. They're still around. Someone I mentioned is that the United States was in the fur trade for a while. They had a factory system. They even called it the United States government fur trade factory system from 1795. That's like pretty much right after George Washington said, I got it. I'll take it from here. And so they ran their own little fur company, set up on the initiative of the father of your country. Because that's all about making money, is what capitalism and our government was founded for. In slave trade, basically. And then how to get out of it. Private interests. When do you ever listen? When did the government listen to private interests? When George Washington is dead and he's made all his money. They criticized it in the American Fur Company. Oh, no, that's John Jacob Astor. It got hurt. We need monopolies. This competition is killing me with the government undercutting it. So they shut it down. Let's shut it down. Old Bullion Benton, American politician, said shut it down. And John Jacob Astor said, you'll never regret it if making money is what you want. Got a couple of future presidents on the board, and nothing's going to stop me now. Boom, shakalaka. Hey, 1793, President Washington suggests a scheme of trading without profit with the Indian nations would gain their friendship and fealty. The president repeated his idea, and they did it. They said, these Indians will never know what's coming when we give them the poison blankets and then break 510 treaties in a row. But at least we did that, make the atom bomb and save the world thing. So there is that. So here's the beginning. Now, I believe this is for the United States market and the people who go like, Putin's not that bad. You know, it's like he's not the mafia. He's not run like a Barack Obama was a puppet. Grow up. So this guy he's one of their Olympian wrestlers that made it big, kind of like bigger and, you know, a more normal Jesse Ventura. Now just listen, everything is scripted. Look at our Renaissance man. He's a pool playing wrestler. I was a wrestler. As a matter of fact, I never made it to state, but I am ready to go. Maybe when I get over 70, I'll try to be the over 70 champ, because I never made it to state. But I still weigh the same as I did in high school. Wow, he's a trick shot artist.
Dear friends, today we have a remarkable guest in our club, a distinguished scientist, an exceptional artist, a brilliant teacher, a writer, and a person who has changed the perception of the past, and therefore the present and future, for tens of thousands of people, not only in our country, but around the world.
Paco, you don't want to show it.
I am honored to introduce
People don't want to
Anatoli
listen to it at double
Fomenko.
speed.
Good afternoon, Anatoli Timofeyevich.
Good afternoon, Igor Igorovich.
This is very formal, as they said, in probably a fake restored mudflood house. It seems rehearsed and scripted.
Before we begin, I want to say that it is a great honor for me to participate in this conversation. We have a wonderful host, a famous wrestler.
So this basically is their, you know, praise. And how old is Fomenko? He's got to be 80. When were you born? 45. Oh, so he's pushing 80. Adrenochrome much, Anatoli?
A multi-time world champion and a well-known author of books.
So he just knows his books. He's read them. Everybody in the country knows them. Everybody in the United States with their 4,000 subscribers should know, wow, Anatoli Fomenko is being interviewed by Igor Cornet. Do you remember the things that's all going to be about? The imperialism is great. The genetics, it's built into these Russian people. You know, we just got to be number one. Just like you are, Igor. No, you're number one, Anatoli.
You wrote the remarkable books, A Wrestler on Wrestling, about the history of wrestling, and Games Pleasing to the Gods, about the history of the Olympic Games. This is a very relevant and important topic today. So, I'm very glad to be here with you, Igor Igorovich. Thank you for the invitation.
Mr. Foreman, look at him blush. Yep, I kicked ass and I promote the Olympics.
Anatoli Timofeyevich, thank you for your kind introduction. I thought for a long time about how to begin, and I decided that, especially in talking with you, it would be best to proceed in chronological order. As I understand it, the first conscious talent that manifested in you was painting.
He was a painter, and who's going to believe it? Out of obscurity, he won a contest, and the world was changed because they opened up a contest, and Anatoli Fomenko won.
From what I gather, you later felt constrained by the real world and, at a more mature age, you began to depict things that are essentially impossible to draw, projecting multidimensional figures onto the two-dimensional surface. It's hard enough to draw a three-dimensional figure in projection, but you started to draw a world that perhaps only a few...
So they let him enter the contest because they said, wow, we can't comprehend your painting, so you must be good.
You can fully comprehend some kind of multi-dimensional geometric figures, right?
Right? Right? What do you got going there? Yeah, who cares?
Yes, that started during my time at the university. I'm a geometer, and at our university, I took wonderful courses in geometry and topology. Together
Because you're in Russia, you're kicking ass.
with the brilliant mathematician Dmitry Fuchs, we came up with the
What'd you call
idea to
me?
write a book on mathematics, which we did. At that time, it was a new, still developing and fashionable topic, and the subject was geometric deformations of figures and their properties. The idea came up to create illustrations.
So I was just going to paint. I was a painter, and I do this crazy stuff, and I just going to. So there's a contest to create illustrations for this book.
For this book, which I did, I drew informal sketches that showed how complex theorems, constructions, and deformations are structured. When the book came out, these illustrations garnered a lot of interest. They played a significant role in promoting topology and geometry at that time. It was my first experience of using ink and pencil to visually represent very complex
Not
subjects
bad for
and
your first
non-trivial
time.
ideas in topology, geometry, mathematics, physics, and their applications, such as hydrodynamics.
But
They
he
were
is
like
Russian.
photographs of the scientific world as seen through the eyes of mathematicians. My first works of painting were connected with mathematics, but later I
Wow.
felt the urge to go beyond mathematics and reflect mythology, associations, and inner thoughts about how our world is arranged, the world we live in. This led to many works that were
That's basically a copy of, another famous painting.
I felt the
not
urge to
this
go
one.
beyond mathematics and reflect mythology, associations, and inner thoughts about how our world is arranged.
This one here, this basically with the cipher over here, the magic squares, this same rock with its thing. He basically copied this with a few changes. That's not an original work.
The world we live in. This led to many works that were outside the boundaries of mathematics. I've never belonged to any associations or considered myself part of any movement. I was very proud of an exhibition that was
All scripted, all rehearsed, all written for him. Here is our history. Boom, 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 boom. And now he's affected the United States. It's worldwide. Very proud. There was going to be an exhibition.
held at the Tretiakov Gallery. It was in the hyper-realism style of the 1960s, a very turbulent time.
By the way, you were the illustrator for the first Soviet edition of The Master and Margarita, right?
That's correct. At that time, the book was being prepared for print for the first time, and everyone was eagerly waiting for it. There was a lot of buzz around it, and the idea of providing it with illustrations came up. A competition for artists was announced in Moscow. I was invited to participate, even though I wasn't a member of the Moscow branch of the Union of Russian Artists, but my work was well known. I created
Right, because he's good. You could just pick up a pen and a pencil and support imperialism.
about 60 works for The Master and Margarita. However, all sorts of intrigues then started surrounding the publication. In the end,
So anyway, he won the contest, but it didn't get published until he was famous.
to read it. The novel deeply affected me with its literary brilliance and its deep exploration of old legends and myths. So, the illustrations weren't just simple pictures. They reflected my own perception and that of my fellow students at the time. It's an outstanding work. In my opinion, it's uniquely Russian, genius, and reflects a great deal of the psychology of our era, our generation, and the generations before us.
What did they think? I mean, we think everybody's jealous of the United States. Wrong. What did you think of yourself in the 60s, Anatoli? 20 years old at the
that's
time.
evident. You were around 45 years old, give or take. You were the youngest academician in the Soviet Union. You had fascinating subjects to study. People strive their whole lives for such achievements. It was the perfect time to rest on your laurels and enjoy your beloved, orderly world. And
What
yet,
an
at that moment,
intelligent
you suddenly
interviewer.
delved into a different field, threw down the gauntlet to the established world of peaceful border sciences, particularly history.
Here we go.
You began developing the new chronology, publishing articles, then books, and promoting the idea. Was the reaction that followed something you expected? Did you anticipate it, or were you surprised by the sharp negative responses?
Of course, the reaction was unexpected. I hadn't really thought about it. I started working on this subject before I became an academician, when I was still a PhD and professor of mathematics. I came to this subject through astronomy. I was studying problems of celestial mechanics, specifically the equations of the moon's motion. There's an important and interesting issue, the moon's acceleration. Before me, there was remarkable work by the outstanding astrophysicist Robert Newton. He discovered a certain effect in the moon's behavior, a leap in its acceleration that couldn't be explained by Newton's law of gravitation. This generated significant.
So you needed an artist, true Russian, a true believer, somebody who could do math, academics in any way, to win the contest, to be in the right place at the right time, to break it down so that everybody in the United States and everybody in Russia can know they added 1,000 years. But don't worry, it could be Atlantis, so you don't have to fear God because it could have been Armageddon. No, that's Salt Paco.
Interest in the scientific community. A conference was convened to explain this leap in the moon's behavior. No explanation was found, leaving an unresolved scientific, purely mathematical,
Because you didn't want to go to the flat Earth thing, right?
physical, and astronomical question. What was happening with the moon in the past? According to this model, there was a leap in acceleration in the past. At that time, I noticed that Newton's calculations of the moon's behavior were based on the dates of old eclipses, which he, of course, took from chronology tables. I had heard of an alternative version of eclipse.
So he just did Occam's razor, so, flipped the dates and boom, babka boom.
Interesting. In fact, it's mathematical, since dating is a matter of applied mathematics. It's about calendar calculations, how events were dated in the past, how calendars were converted, how astronomical clocks behave, the so-called horoscopes depicted on ancient monuments, which allow for dating. This isn't really history, it's applied mathematics, and good one, but not simple at that.
And I agree that when you use his stuff, I mean, my goodness, they lie. Here, what do you got, wrestler man? No teleprompters, but good execution.
Had lived among them.
He was ostracized, exiled, persecuted, and he died in poverty. It was a very sad story in the history of mathematics. There is a similar example in the history of physics. It's the Einstein-Minkowski-Hilbert theory, which didn't replace Galileo's physics but runs parallel to it. There was a lot of noise and much rejection of this new theory at first. Then things settled down, and it turned out to be a reasonable viewpoint.
So he's all into the gravity, the globe. It's just the added history. They just, added 1,000 years for no apparent reason other than to delay the inevitable genetics that are inbred into the Russians.
A name, achievements, and then people start criticizing and slandering you. That must have been unpleasant. And there were threats too, I gather. Did you ever feel like giving up, quitting, and returning to a field where you were more secure? Did such a fleeting thought ever cross your mind?
Pablum of no, I don't give up.
So,
I
the
never
problem turned out to
give
be very
up.
interesting. For a scientist,
Never.
the most important thing in life is to find a good problem and try to make some progress in it. It's a great joy when something works out. So, I'm happy that I was able to encounter such a remarkable subject, such a problem in my life, and that I was able to at least partially solve it. Therefore, I didn't want to step aside. But of course, there were a lot of unpleasant situations for me, my colleagues, and my wife, Tatiana Nikolaevna. Our work caused a very strong reaction in society, both positive and negative. People wrote denunciations against us, sent letters. In the past, such denunciations went to the Central Committee of the Communist Party.
Aren't they glad they don't have to deal with that anymore?
In recent years, they write to the President, to the Investigative Committee, to the Federal Security Service. For example, someone shot through the window of our apartment, others shattered windows.
In general, it's the normal life of a scientist.
The normal life of a scientist who has touched on a subject that really affects and excites many people.
Do you agree that the new chronology has perhaps gone beyond a scientific project and become a certain social phenomenon that has indeed stirred many minds? I know for a fact that your books can be found both in a war zone trench and on a government official's shelf. So, it has truly become something more than just a scientific direction. Does that please you, satisfy you, or is the situation indifferent to you?
Of course not. At first, when we got involved in this matter, we did not expect that the issue would go so far beyond the bounds of science. But it did, and it's clear why. In fact, although we don't fully realize it today, chronology underpins many fundamental things. For example, chronology forms the basis of ideas about the history of states, about who lived in a particular territory and when. This is linked to
And Satan, when he was bound for 1,000 years, so that he could no longer deceive the nations, the modern states. I'm afraid feudalism was the answer for the Golden Age.
modern politics. Today, many argue over territories. Give us this land. We lived here before you, according to chronology. So, unfortunately, chronology turned out to be connected to politics. We didn't intend for this, but it happened. Therefore, many consequences of chronology, which were not made by us, have provoked irritation, surprise, and attempts to understand. Many views change when you change the dates. One of my books is even titled, Changing Dates Changes Everything. Chronology is the backbone that we don't even see today, that we don't realize. Changing dates alters much in the history of art, the military, politics, and states. Replacing dates with different ones is not easy, and the dates are changed significantly. This is why the issue affects people far removed from science, history, and certainly from mathematics or date calculation.
Since we've touched on this topic, one of the cornerstone conclusions of the new chronology is that there once existed a vast empire that encompassed almost the entire inhabited world, which then fragmented.
Armageddon.
The largest fragment is modern Russia. Do you think Russian statehood is possible without the imperial idea?
The imperial
Can Russia
ideal.
exist without it? Many people are surprised by Russia's constant drive to overcome challenges, to be the first in space, first here, first there, sometimes even at the expense of the people's well-being.
Wow, don't they sound like they think they're America? The United States of America? It does. It sounds like they think they're from America.
Can Russia exist without it? Many people are surprised by Russia's constant drive to overcome challenges, to be the first in space, first here, first there, sometimes even at the expense of the people's well-being at certain points in history. We dig canals, live in barracks, build cosmodromes in the desert, but are always striving and doing something. Do you think it's possible for Russia to develop differently? Or is it our fate to eternally attempt to restore its imperial status?
This should scare the bejeebers out of you. This is calm, rational, famous people in another country showing no fear whatsoever of your atomic weapons and your friendship with. There's two bad choices in this world, in my mind. One was choosing Barabbas, and the other is choosing Israel as the state established by God in 1948. I mean, those are two eternal regrets.
It is our fate, our cross, our star. The new chronology unexpectedly led to a consequence we hadn't anticipated. It turned out that many of the great empires we know from textbooks, such as the Roman Empire, the Great Caliphate, the Chinese Empire, the Empire of Charles V, are reflections of one empire that, according to our hypothesis, existed in Eurasia and partially in America from the 14th to the early 17th centuries. In history textbooks, it doesn't surprise people that the Empire of Charles V was considered global.
There you go. Wrap it up, Anatoli.
Thus, the fact that today we see various manifestations of imperial memories, aspirations, and accomplishments should be expected.
It's genetically ingrained.
It's in the genetics, the feeling of the people living in this territory. In this country, across a vast area, there was, and is, one language. There is no other territory like this. It's a memory of the empire, where one language served an enormous territory.
Anatoly Timofeyevich, what other scientific fields interest you? I don't know, perhaps genetics or astronomy. Do you follow developments in related sciences or just read some digests, scientific articles? What subjects concern you?
Of course, I want to learn more. Genetics is very fascinating.
Like mDNA?
I try to follow it, especially since genetics is related to dating issues. Recently, there has been a lot of discussion about the possibilities of dating remains through genetic material. This contributes a lot to chronology and the development of culture around the world. Astronomy is also very interesting.
Yeah. There you go, Anatoly. Going to be 80 years old in March of next year.
I started to crack them open.
Has anyone ever scanned one?
Yeah, well, so I went out and spent 400 of my own ventricular sulcus, and that gets back to your question about the heart and how it fits together, which we'll come back to. So then I went out into the field and I broke a bunch of them open because I wanted to see what they looked like inside. I didn't have any saws or any ways of doing a clean
Well, I'm in a
cut, but I started to crack them open.
Has anyone ever scanned one?
Yeah, well, so I went out and spent 400 of my own money to have them CAT scanned, for the 4 with the chambers and with the openings, and it came back that there were some, but I already knew that there were some chambers inside because I could see them with the naked eye. When I get back to the boiled egg theory, I'll explain why. But mud fossil theory requires that something be encased in mud. And then how would that thing petrify and then be found completely separate from?
Because Mike never wanted to get into the glittering sword of the Bible's judgment. Neither does autodidactic. They're happy with the theories, but they don't like the God.
There's Titan, and there's petrified organ, and there's basically nothing else because if you go up the mountains, you have all of this broken material.
Yeah, it's all washing down from
Do you
the
know what
Titan.
a covenant is? A covenant is a contract or an agreement. In the Bible, covenants are made between God and his people. There are 8 covenants in the Bible. Understanding these covenants is the key to understanding the entire meta-narrative of God's purposes and ultimate will for his people. Let's take a look. The Edenic covenant. The key word here is the word rule.
The main thing is there are covenants. David kept his. Abraham kept his. Jacob, covenant keeper. We have to keep our hand on the plow. We have to realize that all of those who are going to be considered righteous suffer for the name of Jesus. And that the Bible doesn't teach we're going to kick ass and take names. This marbled meat behind me is reserved in judgment. The stones could cry out. I've shown it from my art, dissolving them in hydrogen peroxide and saying, there's a bivalve, and there it is. And we can do it again. So I didn't see anybody come in and say, well, where I want to argue. My questions are always out there. I'm still waiting for somebody to show me where Jesus reigns on a throne for 1,000 years. He's not in heaven ready to send down the fire. There's a whole lot going on. Thank you all for being here, you regulars. I appreciate it all so much. This is a burden. Yes, I know. Our yoke is easy and our burden is light. You're still yoked. You still have a burden. Now it's for the Lord. Being willing to suffer for his name's sake. witness. To most, it will be the stench of death. But to some, is the breath of life. And when you can bring them back, it is a great thing. We do this because we're building up gold, silver, and precious stones. The Bible says that after you're saved by grace, He has set works for you to do that were ordained from before the foundation of the earth. Your life as a co-heir with Christ is yet to be appreciated by you, of being adopted into this family, elect, called from before the foundation of the world, to be His sheep, to hear His voice, to trust in Him, and if necessary, die for Him, but to live for Him, choosing life, knowing that I'm in Alamosa because I believe this is going to be one of the places where a pretty big camp of the saints are divided up into numerous different places where we find old barracks and old castles that are in the mountains that have been mud flooded. And we stay there and we hide. And when they get close, we don't draw a line in the sand and say, well, only 30% of our men are going to die today because eventually you'll run out. We will beat our swords into plowshares, and there will be one generation that is raised that way. Right here on this flat earth nation, because the mud flood was Armageddon, and we're waiting to be rescued by fire. That's what the Bible teaches. It doesn't teach we kicked their ass. That's not a narrow road. Don't let them tell you anything else. That's why me and my friends never will let them get away with it, because we're one, called, two, chosen, and three, proving ourselves faithful to having your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho, aloha, arrivederci, ciao, sayonara, auf Wiedersehen, lakame. It always means goodbye and hope to see you later.